I'm going to call this meeting of the Neighborhood Plan Committee. Uh, First up on our agenda is, and I don't have the agenda right in front of me. I'm sorry. So is our public concern session. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak on an issue that's not on our agenda? If so, raise your hands. Oh, no, that needs to be done. Hearing none, we can move on to the next order of business. Sorry, thank you so much. I have notes, but I didn't write all that down. So the first item is the report on the composition of the committee, and the reason that I put this on here is, I'm sorry, we have approval of minutes. Did everyone have, I hope everyone had an opportunity to review those. Do we have any corrections that anybody is or wants to submit? Okay, well, we will adopt the minutes or as distributed, or you'll hear that. Then do I have a motion to approve? Larry moved. Do I have a second?
I second.
I said,
Maheo seconded. All those in favor say yay.
yay.
All those opposed say no. Wait, okay. And here, no, any abstentions? Hearing none, we can move on. Thank you. Our first order of business is the report on the composition of the committee, and it was just regarding Ross Crabb. As everyone may know, and if you haven't heard, he was actually appointed a state senator by the governor. And because of that position, he had to resign his position on the board. And because he was no longer a board member, he resigned his position with this committee also. So maybe in the future he can come back, but he'll serve out his term, and that'll be a decision down the road. And committee and the board will do, or the commission will do what they will at that point. So anyway, that's all for that. Next order of business is to the consideration of the plan, the reorganization proposal set forward. I hope everybody had an opportunity to look at it. It was available online. I would ask, first off, for public comments, and we do have someone who wishes to speak to this, the reorganization proposal. So if you'd like to come up, introduce yourself, please, and maybe sit right here so we can see you. By the way, if you would. Yeah, you're close to the mic. Okay. Yeah, you might have to speak up because of the fan.
Okay, I appreciate that. Hello, members. Good evening. My name is Tom Heinrich, and I'm speaking in my individual capacity this evening. Some of you I know very well for years. Can't quite shake the board system. Part of my background is I served, I think, 14 years as a member and chair of the Manoa Neighborhood Board. Served for about a year on the Neighborhood Commission, and then under Mayor Carlisle, 2011, 2012, served as executive secretary for the Neighborhood Commission office. Really prior to that latter service on the Neighborhood Commission and as executive secretary, one of the things that took one of the longest experiences in my life, unintended, was in fact the overhaul of the neighborhood plan that you have before you. It's had a few amendments, but the neighborhood plan 2008 was a complete overhaul, which used as a basis the prior neighborhood plan, which hadn't grown much, was grossly outdated, and we started that effort under Mayor Harris, separate from the administration completely, because of a high number of complaints about the complaint process. And one of our first goals was, is there any way, in fact, that we can remove the complaint process from the neighborhood plan because of the inordinate amount of time that it causes for petty things and the time of the neighborhood commission? I need not say anything further because you guys are still enduring that. But from that effort in 1997, a number of people came together, and by whatever means, I ended up being the lead volunteer groups Smith, and every that experience and some of the legal overlays, that,
Hold on, I'm sorry, we're gonna get stopped, just lost everybody.
oh, okay, come on.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a great episode. Hey, everybody, can you hear us? We're back.
Yes.
Okay. Recording is in progress. Please continue.
Yeah.
The last 30 seconds.
Thanks.
All right, sorry.
Again, Tom Heinrich speaking my individual capacity. Where I stopped right there was just saying, one of the things that we absolutely learned in that process was in fact a number of the legal overlays that affected what we were doing. One of the most important really being that the current layout of the plan is in the state and cities administrative rules format, according to the administrative drafting manual. The number, you start off and you kind of look at what is Title II, Chapter, whatever it is, et cetera. Well, that's where the neighborhood commission is assigned in the overall organization of the city's administrative rules. And that is, administered by the Honolulu City Clerk. That is organized through the office of the city clerk. So there are certain other things that we can get into later once you get going. But the overall format that you see has that layout. And one last quick comment on the plan is, please note that the neighborhood commission is first, in chapter 12, I think it is, 11 or 12. Because the neighborhood commission is at the top of the pyramid. The neighborhood boards are all subordinate and come subsequent to the neighborhood commission. So let me just stop there in this sense. There was a lot of effort by many people that went into where this plan is. There are a couple of things that should be addressed now, both substantively, but also just in the notations on the plan. I noticed a number of what I'll call typos from the most recent set of amendments. That's easy to fix and does not require legal permission action. But if in any way that I can provide assistance, I'm very interested in the plan. I'm very interested in providing whatever help I can. Let me stop there.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Do we have any other public comments? Anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Okay, Kevin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo some of the comments from Mr. Heinrich, who definitely has a lot of experience in this arena. But it would probably be focused towards examining again the complaint process to the degree that you anticipate it staying within the revised plan. And perhaps looking at some of the most egregious ways or most numerable ways in which the complaint process was engaged, which portions of the neighborhood plan led to complaints being filed. And then perhaps there could be a focus placed on those particular areas within the plan to try to reduce the friction that may have led to those complaints. And then relatedly, a question about if the committee will at some point release an editable version of its current working document so that others outside of the committee will be able to, with facility, highlight, markup, and provide feedback regarding the document rather than having to try to manipulate a rather uneasily editable PDF file. And then lastly, have you engineered deadlines for review of comments before you go to public meeting sessions? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let me respond to this quickly, if I remember them all correctly. First off, you addressed the complaints procedure. We haven't actually even got there. This is just really, actually, this is more about the reorganization proposal that we have. Secondly, we have a version that we will be working on that is online. So there is, and you can edit it and do whatever you want. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about going forward. And then thirdly, I can't remember what the third thing was. What did I miss, Kevin?
Perhaps a timeline on when you'll be expecting feedback before you go to public.
Thank you. So there will be talk of a plan and sort of going forward. It's hard to have an absolute timeline, but I'll get into how maybe or propose how the committee could proceed. And as far as the timeline, I don't see us really locking in specific dates and that sort of thing because it's kind of very difficult to tell how long it will take us, what the community input will be, and obviously with the previous public comment, that actually will throw quite a monkey wrench into the process. So I think it's difficult at this time to set an explicit timeline. What I'm more interested in seeing is that we make progress, good progress each month. So that's sort of the philosophy. I think I discussed that with the committee last time. No one seemed to disagree. So that's what I think we're going to adopt. Okay. Thank you. Next up, Ernest.
Yeah, so as far as your neighborhood plan reorganization, I want to touch on borders. Have you folks even got to borders? Because the border situation that we see is not reflective of who we are as a community. I mean, even this weekend, Saturday, when I talked to ASB, they can't believe that they are actually in Kalihi when they're actually in Chinatown area, and they are Chinatown. And the people at 215 North King Street, right across from Ala Park, which is Chinatown, are complaining because they're not getting no feedback from the Kalihi Palama neighborhood board. And they know, that says, when we moved into this building, we were told we were in Chinatown. But yet your borders, the way you drew it out, is not reflective of what truly is Chinatown. So therefore, a lot of these people who wants to address us, don't address us, they go to Kalihi Palama, but yet nothing is happening there. And this, where the borders are made, they really put Chinatown in such a quandary that we cannot even take care of our own neighborhood because of the overflows that's happening in the other section of it. That should be Chinatown that would allow us to better control our areas.
Thank you. There again, actually, this was about the reorganization proposal. We haven't actually gotten to geography yet, although that may be the very next thing we take up, but we haven't gotten there yet. This is purely really about the reorganization proposal. Are there any more questions or input from the public? Well, Kevin, please quickly, go ahead.
Thank you. As a second time speaker, Chair, I was just wondering, do you have the landscape within the seat administrative rules to use the reorganized numbers, the scheme that you have compared to what we have now? I was trying to find Title II, as you mentioned, either this week or last month online. But I was just wondering, are those assigned numbers, are they open and free to use for this revised plan?
Well, that is the question. I was not aware that this would fit into administrative rules. There was some discussion about why this scheme was the way it was, and no one that I had talked to had knowledge that it was supposed to be different. So what I would say when we get to our committee discussion, or when we actually get to our members discussion, and I'll say it now, is that I would suggest going forward with the proposal. And if we are required to make that change by corporate counsel, then so be it. We're required. So that would be my response. But if you ask me if I know that we're in safe harbor going with our current proposal, no, I do not know that. So kind of flying by the seat of our pants to some extent, but for reasonable purposes. Are there any further? Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Tom Heinrich again. Just two quick comments. The first is it may be very helpful because of everybody's moving parts or whatever, that in whatever is the basic draft that you're going to work off of as the proposal, that you add to there somewhere, you just at the end, in brackets or a different type of bracket, But the original number as presently presented, because so we may end up with things that are not in the current plan. But in that regard, as others of us copy and paste, we pick up that original number in the body as compared to whatever the numbers may be in the left column. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing, I appreciate the comment about district borders and district boundaries. That is a subject that has gotten more attention very recently in several boards. I don't know if that process may get initiated or completed prior to the next election. The calendar is going very fast. But just to say, there is interest as well on the whole subject of district boundaries, which is a whole separate issue compared to the plan itself.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, basically, when I proposed the reorganization, it's actually a very simple reorganization, so it's not difficult to see from the current plan to where it's reorganized into the proposal. But I didn't include the exact, I think I kind of outlined it at the last meeting, but I didn't include the numbers next to the new organization, but it is what it is. So now that we've gone through our public comments, Richard?
Well, just a kind of question. I'm not sure if I follow all of the comments. Question I had, I like the way you reorganize the plan. But if I'm understanding a little bit of what Tom's saying, I'm saying that the current network plan has to follow the administrative rule title in that order.
That's,
Because if we have to do that, and the other question I came into the meeting really was, if we go through this process to make changes to the plan, the substance of the plan, where we go to the end, whether we would follow the new format that we propose, or whether we would have to follow what Tom, I think, was suggesting, that we have to kind of use the old plan and references to where things are in there first, because wouldn't we have approved the reorganization of the plan as part of this whole process, which is basically at the end? So you can't really approve this upfront, or the question I had. So if we cannot do that, then basically we have to go back to the original document. If you make those changes, and at the end, if you approve the total reorganization of the plan into a new format, wouldn't it just be kind of pro forma, just a procedure thing, just putting things into place where they should go, rather than to consider the substance, because that's already being done during the course of the review process of the plan, whatever issues and stuff we're going to have.
yeah, I think my response was, I think we could reorganize pretty much on the fly if we had to. And we could renumber if we had to. Now, please note what I would, my observation of the whole procedure is the committee can do whatever we want. We can attack, we can review certain parts first. We can reorganize or whatever. At the end, it's going to go back to the commission. And I'm certain that at some point, it's going to be reviewed by the corporate council. And if either body says, we don't like this, then it'll come back and we have to edit it to their.
Do we find that out first? Whether we have to follow the timing is Tom had mentioned that we did when we restructured them for 2008 plan. Before we make changes, make the actual proposal up for because
Well,
that's going to be tossed out. It's like, doesn't make sense to do that.
Well, I will just say, I only found out about 10 minutes before the meeting. So,
Same time as us.
yeah, actually, it probably would be wise, but it just depends on if the committee wants to wait. So, Larry, would you like to?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, our biggest task is going to be reaching out to all the neighborhood board members, the chairs, and collecting information. you want to make it as easy as possible. You know, and if you can vision this thing with Dylan, having the Google page all set up, everybody's pointed to that page, and they all match the original neighborhood plan to keep it simple. And you're collecting their information. What would they like to see change? What, you know, what recommendations they have, and it matches the number. When they put it in, it makes it easy for us to see that if we look at, you know, section 214-110 under executive meetings, you've got 10 comments from neighborhood board meetings. The next section may have 2, yes. And then afterwards, when you collect that information, we make an agreement on, was that a good input? Do we need to make that change? But those changes are way down the road. So the hardest part is collecting the information, and the next thing is getting approval of what changes should be made, and then what format fits that corporate council to get. But you want to make it, we don't want to waste a lot of time on this thing, and we don't want this thing to drag on, you know, forever. This thing could be done very efficiently. Get the word out, get the changes in, and then all of us, and from a, you know, from a standpoint of transparency, everybody gets to see the comments that were submitted. Another neighborhood board says, hey, that was a good idea, but you ever think of this too? And they slip that in. Anyway, that's my perspective.
So what I'm hearing is you're not enthusiastic about the reorganization before we tackle any edits.
Information first.
Are there any other comments from the committee members? So,
Rich, Patrick, can you hear
Yeah.
me?
yes.
Can you
thank
hear me? Okay. I reviewed the reorganization draft that you created. I like it. I think it's a good starting point. It doesn't have to be the final template to start with. And once information starts coming in and we look at what we're going to keep, what we're going to amend, what we're going to take out, you know, through the process, I think that as a working outline, it's a good one. It's a good starting place. That can always be changed as we move through the process, but it gives us that starting point. That's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. So ultimately, not that we have to, but it would be good to decide whether we want to adhere or start with our review process using the old format, or if we want to move to the new proposed format. So do I hear a motion to adopt the proposed format as a basis for our review?
I so move.
Okay,
I
so
second.
thank you. Is there any, I mean, we already kind of discussed, is there any further discussion? I mean, I will say, yeah, we can always go back and forth. It's just, you know, this was proposed to make sense. And I think when we go each section, like our board, all the board businesses, they will be right where the board people will see. It won't be the same exact numbers, but the subjects will all be the same. I'm not sure there would be the basis for a big confusion, but I can understand people's desire to have it the exact same too. So, but anyway,
The only comment is that as long as we don't have to go back and forth between the reorganized version and the old version, then it gets pretty messy. So it's either one or the other.
well,
That's the point. But you can't go back and forth between the old.
well, I think what it'll come down to is if we adopt the new reorganized version and we find out it is not allowable, then by default, we will move to the, probably the current version or whatever we're told to do. So that'll be it. It won't be a back and forth, like some vacillating thing. It'll be one or the other. So
Right.
are there any further comments? All right, so
No.
we can move on to a vote for the committee members, please. All those in favor, all those in favor of approving the reorganized version or proposal as a starting basis, please say yay.
Yay.
Okay. All those opposed, please say no or raise your hand or something, sir. Are there any abstentions? I think that was 5-. Okay, all right, so we will start with the basis of the outline that was provided. Okay, so let me move on to the consideration of the draft, or consideration of the next step in the review process. So let me go through this if I could. And that is, what I would envision is that we do set steps that we go through. So the next step that I would suggest is that we review the geographical boundaries. That would be Appendix A. I don't know if the committee has an appetite to actually review the boundaries itself. I hear Ernest, that's a big concern. But that is an undertaking to itself. So the committee can certainly, take us where they will. So just consider that. I don't know if it's necessary to read all that. I think it'd be a glutton for punishment, but as it is, okay, let me just say one last thing. So there is a part of the geographical, that section that was put into, I think it's section 4, or part 2, chapter 4. And so that is also what I would like the committee members and the public, if they would, to review. And let's take that in more detail next meeting. Larry.
Yeah, what I wanted to mention is Bill Hicks had brought up to bring into the last meeting was he's also concerned about the boundaries. He said concerned specifically the districts. And I know with Waikiki, as big as they are, the Kaka'ako area, of course, Ernest there, even though he's got his concern there. We need to probably go through the last census because that's why they did the reapportionment. When they did the reapportionment for all the legislators and everything. But I don't know, that's a lot of work to go through that and looking at those numbers, because Kaka'ako has extremely grown. The Chinatown area, Pearl City pretty much remained the same, Aiea, and we're all at large anyway to make it easy.
Well, as I said, that is a huge endeavor. If the committee has a desire to do that, might I suggest that we put that at the end?
Yes,
Or maybe,
that's a tough one.
yeah, that's a lot of work, and that would, getting all that information, and that really is a whole separate project. So Stephen, like to.
Yeah, I would like to echo the last comments. I think that it'd be worth our while to go through the boundaries because there has been so much revision over the last decade or so. And it just politically, I believe it does need to be addressed. I know it would be a chore, but I think it would help to alleviate some frustration within the boards. And what Larry mentioned is true. This is an opportunity we have to settle the differences that have been gnawing for a while and help to consolidate the boards together. And geography is one area that's been brought up on several occasions. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me get Dylan. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was just a food for thought that Lloyd and I had, but normally the process for boundary changes goes through like a petition process and whatnot, but that's assuming that the plan is currently set. However, if you are going through a plan amendment process, would there just be a way of just doing a boundary adjustment as part of the neighborhood plan amendments? And that's something that we're curious about maybe asking.
Okay. Who are you asking? Okay.
Oh, well, no, well, that would be something that maybe, maybe we could go to Corp Council or something, or I think Lloyd has something to say.
Okay, Lloyd, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I think it's easy to talk about, just making changes and figuring out new district boundary lines. The challenge is going to be somebody's have to go through the database of the census to at least figure out where you want to draw the line. And the challenge we always have is not only do we figure out where we draw the line, which means you have to do some research and intensive research, but you also have to try and mold your neighborhood boards with council member districts, House representative districts, Senate districts, and on and on and on. And the challenge is sometimes you have a representative and the representative has 5 different boards, or the council member has 5 different boards to cover in their district. So I think we just need to think about it a little bit. Let us give it some thought, and maybe we can tailor our neighborhood boards more along the lines of the House of Representatives and their districts, and say, can we use that as a basis? And that doesn't necessarily follow the normal pattern in the neighborhood. Some neighborhoods are divided with 2 different representatives. So it's a really complicated deal. I don't think there's an easy answer to it. And once you delve into it, it is a lot of work. I mean, it basically is a reapportionment deal. And the reapportionment is, happens every, 10 years or so with the state. And there's the county reapportionment and also statewide. So it's pretty intense, and they hire professionals to actually lay out the census data tracks and who lives where. And that's how they decide the districts. For the neighborhood boards, we got 33 boards right now. We could have more. I can see situations where some districts need more than 1 board, and I think Ebba is a good example. Their population just exploded. So while I agree it's something that we should look into, it is a huge challenge. I mean, a huge, huge challenge to just try and figure out what are the parameters that you will say, okay, we're going to divide the neighborhood board districts by what? By physical location, laid over population. It's not the easiest thing to do. I mean, Patrick, you and I, we've chatted about it previously, and we've talked about it in our office. Let us just take a look at it and see if we can figure out how we would attack it, how we would go about doing it. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. It's just that it would be nice to be able to do it in a way that does not consume us. And like I said, when the state does it, they have professionals come in and start, doing the redistricting. So, and even they at that point, don't always get it right. So anyway, appreciate the comment and everybody else, but yeah, let us, as an office, let us think about it. Yeah, let us think about it a little bit, and then maybe we can come back at the next meeting and have maybe a little bit of a better idea of how we would go about doing it.
Okay, thank you. Larry.
I want to help you, Pat. I would jump in and volunteer to work with Lloyd and also work with Ernie and and collect information for you and see what is doable.
Okay, I think at this point, I'd ask the committee if we can maybe put that off to the end, because my concern is we're gonna kind of lose focus. And really it was about, this is really about, reviewing and making modifications to the substantive part of the plan. Not to say that the boundaries aren't really, really important, but yeah, we can start this process and get way off course. So, could I suggest, and that would actually be a great idea if Larry wants to work on this, but maybe if we sort of put this off after we're finished. Stephen. You're muted, Stephen.
Thank you. You could even create a PIG, a permitted interaction group, so that the commission, the planning process would continue on schedule and not have additional burdens. Have the PIG do the research. If I may suggest, I would approach it rules-based. Create the rules first, bring it to the commission or to the planning committee, and then from there, go ahead and break out responsibilities, and then how to approach it by district.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Thank you. So why don't we table taking any action? We haven't technically have this, we don't have this on the agenda, so, let's see what the NCO or Lloyd has for us next month. And maybe we can do the permitted action group and Larry, can take the lead on that. And, yeah, and just get more input to see what sort of endeavor we're actually getting ourselves into. So if that's okay with everybody. Any further comments on?
No,
Chair Grubb?
agreed. Agreed.
Thank you. So what I was going to suggest is, so if we really take out the geographical portions, and I had this written down in my notes, but I kind of misplaced it, sorry, is that if we, where is this section? Hold on just one second, please. So maybe if we started next month, we should look at Appendix B, but we can also start with the neighborhood commission. We can see how far we get. If I could have all the committee members just read section 1 and 2. So that's part 3, chapters 1 and 2. It's not very much. And if everyone would read and sort of prepare. What I talked with Dylan, and maybe what we could do, what we suggested is that everybody could read that. If they have anything they particularly want to highlight or discuss, if you would send that, you could send that to Dylan, or you could send that to me. We would highlight that in our public document. We have a public document of an ongoing, and it can be edited by the public, but we have an ongoing document that would show all the reviews up to a certain date. And that's on our public Google Drive. And so if we can have submissions like a week and a half out, then I could put that and highlight all the portions that people want to talk about. If you want to make a concrete proposal or something, or just say idea, like I'd like to change this to do this, that's fine. Just something to let the public know that that's something we're going to particularly talk about. And if other board members want to look at it too, then that would be fine. You don't have to do that to bring it up the meeting. It doesn't preclude anybody, the member of the public or a member of the committee, bringing up additional things. It just it provides a little bit more or head start for the members of the public and the members of the committee. So that's what I would suggest.
Patrick?
Yes, Mahead, please go ahead.
So I just want to confirm the document that I'm looking at is 9 pages. So you're talking about Part 3, the Neighborhood Commission, Chapter 1, Rules and Procedures, and that would be page 5, and then page 6, Chapter 2, Complaint Process. Is that what the part that you're talking about? It's the 9-page document. So page 5 and 6.
No, it's, I don't have that. Can we share that outline? This is what your first section. So there are 2 separate documents, first off.
Right. I'm looking at
And
the
they-
first document, which is 9 pages.
Okay, and you're probably looking at the outline. So if you read the document, the way it's set up is it's neighborhood plan underscore, or maybe V for the year, the month, and the day. And then if it has the underscore out or outline, that's actually the outline. And that's just for the purposes of today's meeting, just to sort of give it a very quick document for the overview. The actual document that we're going to be working from is the MT, V whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
59
Can you
pages.
repeat? Okay. Right. So can you just repeat the part that you'd like us to review again? It's part 3.
So it's part 3. It's the neighborhood commission, just the general provisions, and then the
Okay.
powers, duties, and functions. So
Okay.
it's chapters, and I call them subchapters here. Chapter 1 and chapter 2.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and that'll be section 3-1-101 through 3-1203. So if you would just all read those, make comments, see what you think. If you want to make any highlights, like I said, if you have anything burning, if you read it before a week and a half out, if you send that to me, then I can put that in our document and it'll go out before our agenda. And that way it will Dylan will have the link to that. And that way people can see it. And what I'll do for the next time, I'll just pull that specific provision out. And I mean, it should be obvious based on how I post it or how it's posted. But if there are any questions, just ask Dylan. Dylan, just
Okay.
have something.
Yeah, I
Thank
just wanted
you.
Thank you.
Regarding the Google Drive, the committee members are editors and everyone else with the link, the general public, anyone that accesses the agenda. They can view and download, and therefore you can edit and then send it to chair or myself, or just the neighborhood commission office in general. And then we can upload it to the Google Drive for you. We want to avoid editing the same document outside of the meeting. That'll get messy. So keep everything separate, collect your thoughts, and then piece them together in an email to Chair Smith, myself, or the neighborhood commission office, general keeping. And then we'll put it up there. And Chair Smith said, if you can get it up early, that gives everyone a good chance to review ahead of the meeting. We can also have the links in the agenda when they go out for distribution. Thank you.
So, yeah, that's kind of the point is we'd like to give everyone sort of a heads up, but obviously we don't want to stop anybody from saying something at the meeting that they may be interested in. I'm sorry, I missed you, Tom. Tom wanted to say something and I forgot. Do you remember what did it say?
It had to do with the geography of stuff,
Okay, thank you. So for those that if they didn't hear it online, he said it had to do with geography and it'll wait. So thank you very much. I think that is about it. So we have, like I said, we have our task in front of us. As far as the geography, we're going to have more input next week, or I'm sorry, next month. I forget our meeting day, but it's likely the third Tuesday of the month, or Monday, excuse me.
16.
It's the 16th. So everybody put that, September 16th. Are there any other, does anyone want to say anything before we conclude business? And Larry?
When are we going to do our outreach to ask the board members?
Okay, I forgot to put that on the agenda, but if you want to report on that.
What I'd like to recommend, the chair, is to have the NCO send out a email to all the board members with chairs and explain to them the purpose of what we're doing right now with the neighborhood plan revision. And then ask them to be thinking now, if there's anything that's pressing with them for make any recommended changes to improve the neighborhood plan. And we start collecting that information, but we want to make sure that when they provide their input, it's formatted, so we don't have to look at where it goes. It actually relates, have them submit a special format. First thing is, the line item that it's referred to in the new structure. And that way, as we accumulate it, we can see we've got one area that everybody wants to change to.
Yeah. Chair, can I pull up something that's on our website?
Yes.
So they gotta get this be adopted, the revised plan.
So
Yeah.
They work you off the
Yes.
16th. Not the old.
That's what he puts out to everybody.
Yeah, 'cause the old one is on the website.
But thank you.
Well, we're going to operate off the Google Drive. So everybody who's interested in the process, and when this email goes out, it should show the Google Drive docs.
Click right on it, there's the link.
And I mean, the way I've done these type of things before is you have everything, but you have a version, so it'll have to be the most recent, they're going to see the most recent one. It'll be at the top or the bottom of the list, there's sort of.
I just wanted to share, if this is what you're talking about, this is from the last amendment process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, but what I would suggest is that is more of a summary at the end, as opposed to an ongoing, yeah.
So I was
Right.
looking for what you were proposing.
I'm proposing that you educate all the board members.
Yeah.
Solicit their own inputs to the new version that you're gonna get them. This is the new format that we're gonna go with.
Gotcha.
And when you submit your recommendations, make sure the first thing you put in there, what line item number it equates to, what subject, put it in, and also the name, because we may want to go back to them for further information, so we know who submitted that recommendation.
So create a simple template. Simple template.
Yes.
Okay, we could do that. Yeah, we could have a public comment. Richard, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I don't remember how we received the proposal for last time, if there was some kind of standard format. We just wanted, it's like what the legislature does with the ramps here, you know, they put the old language in, put in the new one. The old stuff, you know, they have a format to follow, so I don't know if you want to say it's going to be after the easier. Do something like that, rather than just try to figure out what people are trying to change.
I don't have an answer for you tonight.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know if we did think it helped.
Well, before we get to there, let me just say that the way I thought this would play out was that we would get to the neighborhood boards sort of towards the end. So that hopefully there will be plenty of time for people who are very passionate about each of those type of provisions. And they will have time to kind of think about it. And they know the process, and hopefully they know the process is going on, and they'll have an opportunity at that point. So, Tom, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Tom Heinrich again. Two comments. The first, on this point specifically, Dylan, I'm not looking at your laptop, but on the NCO website, if you take a look at the 2018 proposed amendments that were up for discussion, that format's been used a number of times quite effectively as a collector point. So there's not a lot of fancy stuff necessary. I think it's only 3 volumes on that. Okay, so that's a suggestion for tried and true in that regard. Although what Larry was saying in terms of input coming in, being as specific as possible, a section of it, etc. The second thing is a matter of vocabulary, if you will. I'm getting a little confused, if you will, between the use of the term reorganization and the full ramifications of that compared to section 2-20-101, periodic comprehensive review. And I think what you need to be careful with, and it's actually easier to go with the comprehensive review side, then anything is more appropriate coming in for the committee's review before you take it back to the commission or whatever. But I think for the nature of the breadth of the discussion, simply use of the term reorganization is a misnomer. And I would go with the language in chapter 20 of the plan as it is, which gives you full leeway and it's consistent in terms of the nature of the review process. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Well, just to be clear, the reorganization is just the part, it's just the step that we approved this evening. Then it will be.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll be a review going forward.
Yes.
So it won't be called the reorganization. It'll just be called our review of the plan. And
Right.
and it will be documented, like hopefully there'll be some sort of change log, and I've done that. And then people will see that part of that change, the first thing we did is reorganize the document. So anyway, but it will be a continuation of, it will be a review. I'm sorry, Lloyd, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I appreciate the request to have an outreach to the neighborhood board members for their comments on what they would like to see change. I just want to remind everyone of the neighborhood board system is to provide the public with the opportunity to speak with their government, to interact with their government. Really, it's for the public. You want us to go ask the public what they think about our neighborhood plan? Because they have right now no input.
Yeah.
So as a take of that, just to let you know, under consideration right now, what we are planning to do is and I realize that the commissioner has his survey that he wants to do with the neighborhood board members. we're interested in doing a survey of the general public. And I think I'm going to move forward with it. If I can get it done by the end of the year, that would be great. But just to let you know that my entire philosophy about the neighborhood boards is that they are created for the benefit of the public. So at some point, we need their input, whether it's now or whether it's after we get a final draft and we just publish it and say, this is what we're thinking, this is the changes we want to make. But at the same time, well, I kind of went off on a tangent. I agree with Pat. As a committee to come up with that everybody can work at. And I think that's going to be challenging itself, but to have hundreds of people changing things in the plan, it makes it a bit of a challenge because you're going to have to track everything. But I think what would be important, and I agree with Patrick, that we need to produce something. And I think if given that, I think this committee can. I think this committee can produce something that the public can weigh in and the board members can weigh in and say, we like this part, we don't like this part. Can you add this? Can you add that? Well, it would be better to give them what we're thinking about in terms of what we see as revisions to the plan. And then we can start, and I think that's where it starts. That's where it starts with the outreach to the board members and the public. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Does anyone, Larry?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Lloyd said, this would be a great opportunity for the neighborhood board chairs at their meetings, just to put it on their agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was.
It's to make it easy for you, that the chairs provide the update to the public, say, hey, you're welcome, if you can contact the NCO, get your inputs in. That way it's streamlined.
Yeah,
To the
I was
boards.
thinking, I was kind of thinking how we could do that, where we could actually ask them to put it on their agenda and have a short little presentation for them of just 2 or 3 minutes, saying this is what we're doing, this is where we're at right now because we're early in the process, and this is how you can become involved, whether it's attending a meeting or submitting testimony. I mean, that's sort of the thought. So when we draft the email and we can have the forms ready to go, we could attach that or have a link to it in our shared drive. And so we can kind of formulate some ideas there. Sound good? All right.
Great.
Any last comments then? Hearing none, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, very much.
Thank you.
Please remember your homework.
God
Thank
bless
you.
guys.
Thank you.